Our next speaker is Dave Dowling, and just out of curiosity, does anybody not know Dave? Dave.
I could have back
Dave, as you know, has an encyclopedic flower brain and is so willing to share all of his knowledge. If you can just get him to talk a little slower. But he's very patient with me because I'm challenged sometimes with getting it all. But anyhow, he's going to talk today about the things you can be doing in the fall with bulbs, corms. That's it, bulbs and corms.
Bulbs and corms.
Bulbs and corms. Okay, here we go.
Okay, welcome everybody. You got the handout. If you think guys heading back from both sides, just heading back here. This back is right there. It should come back both sides. Just grab it. I've listed a bunch of different bulb crops. We're only going to go over the ones that are underlined because those are the ones we were planting in the fall or the winter. The ones at the back half, the second half of the back page, once you plant next summer, we're not going to talk about those now. They're just information so you know other bulbs that you can grow. When you think about planting fall bulbs, the first thing you think about is tulips. Tulips, there's several kinds of tulip bulbs, so the treatment they get. There are programmed bulbs, which is we have already pre-cooled them at the supplier. They've already had either all of the winter cooling or some of the winter cooling, so you get them to grow in the middle of the winter. They don't have to have more cold all winter and then bloom in April. You can have flowers from December, usually right around Christmas, all through the spring until your outside tulips bloom in April. If you're selling at a market that's open all winter, like I had it in DuPont Circle and another market that's all year, I could sell tulips in December, January, February, and March. And then my outside tulips would be ready, and I sell even more of them in April. If you don't have a greenhouse to grow them in, or a market in the winter, or a good florist that's going to buy from you all winter, you would not be interested in the programmed tulips. There's basically two kinds, called either 5 degree or 9 degree. 5 degree has had all the cooling they need, so when you get them, you plant them to grow them right away in your greenhouse. This is a heated greenhouse, it has to be at least 40, 45 at night. If it's 50 to 55, it makes them grow a little quicker. Or you get some 9 degree tulip, which has had about half of the cooling it needs. You plant them in crates, put them in a cooler or in a cold shed or barn, and give them another 6 or 8 weeks of cooling, and then you grow them in your greenhouse. So that's for the programmed tulips. If you do want to grow those, you have to order them now. You can't wait and say, I want to plant them early December, and then have flowers in January because they've not had their cooling yet. Your supplier is only going to pre-cool the tulips once they're already sold. So in other words, we don't take thousands of tulips and cool them hoping to sell them. We only cool them as people order them. So if you want pre-cooled tulips, you have that greenhouse want to do it, you want to order them now within the next week or so, then we cool them and then ship them to you in November, December, January when you want them. Yes?
Temperature for the greenhouse to do that?
The greenhouse, if you're growing the tulips, it can be, as long as it's above freezing, 40 degrees is enough, they're going to grow really slow. If you have a greenhouse that's 55 at night, a tulip will be ready in 3 or 4 weeks. If it's 35, 40 degrees, it might take 8 or 10 weeks. So the warmer the greenhouse, the faster. If you have a cool greenhouse that is heated above freezing, you can put tulips in there if it's 40 degrees. They're just going to take longer to bloom.
Okay.
So that's it with the programmed tulips. If you want to grow a tulip that's a regular non-programmed tulip, which you just call it a regular tulip, you can plant those out in the field with deer protection because it is deer candy. They will eat them. Where I'm in New Jersey, literally, as soon as the snow melts, they will dig the bulbs out of the ground before they even sprout. So deer will eat tulips as soon as they come out of the ground. So you have to have deer protection. It can be as simple as the hortenova, the flower netting, the 4-foot high, and a fence right around the bed. That's all I did and saved my tulips from the deer. But the non-program, the regular tulips, you get them in October. You can plant them in the field, and they'll bloom for you around this area in April. A little farther south, a little bit sooner, and farther north, it will be late April, early May. But the great thing you do with field tulips is you can put half of them or some of them in a tunnel, and those will be ready 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks before the ones out in the field. The way pricing is on tulips, if you buy a full crate, that's your best thing. It's like buying a whole bag of potatoes is cheaper than buying one potato. So you buy the whole crate of tulip bulbs, which is 500 in a crate. You plant, say, 200 in a tunnel, 300 out in the field. Your 200 in the tunnel will be ready 3 to 4 weeks before the ones in the field, so you get your customers know, oh, here they got tulips that stand at the end, so they start buying tulips from you in early March. Then when your ones in the field are ready in April, the weather's better, more people are coming to the market, and now you sell the 300 tulips 4 weeks later after the ones you planted in the tunnel. But again, it's only if a place to sell them in the spring. Nothing's worse than spending money in a bulb, whether it's a tulip, a lily, a daffodil, growing it and not selling the flower. The sunflower seed costs you a penny or 2 cents. The bulb's going to cost you 20, 30, 50 cents. If you don't sell it, you've lost money. So you've got to have a place to sell your bulbs before you plant it. So don't plant a bunch of flowers, then think you'll find a place to sell it in the spring. Once you have a market already set up, whether it's a farmer's market, a florist that you know is going to buy from you, or a grocery store. Don't plant the bulbs unless you have a place to sell them. Because then if you plant them and don't sell them, you never buy them again. And on this end of the business, I wouldn't like that. We want you to be successful, sell and make money and buy more. So with the tulips, I think I explained on there, you planting them in the field or in the tunnel, you do the trench method where you take, say you've got a bed that's 3 feet wide by 50 feet long, start on this end, dig down 6 or 8 inches, just a 3-foot square of soil, put them in a wheelbarrow, move it to the other end of the bed, put your bulbs here, and it's called egg crate spacing, just about your finger space between each bulb. It's not one bulb per 6 inches or every 9 inches, really close together, about as much room as your finger between each bulb, and fill that in. Then dig the next 3 feet of dirt and put that on the first bulb as you plant it. And just keep going down that way. So then you've only handled each shovel full of soil once. You're not putting it on the side and having to dig it back on top later. Then when you get to the end, you plant the last one and put that soil back on the last section of bulbs. It just makes it so much quicker and easier to plant your bulbs that way. If you're doing the tulips in the tunnel, you want to keep at least in this zone around here, farther north a little later, south you go a little sooner maybe. If you close them up around the first week of February, it's about the right timing to get them ready 3 to 4 weeks before the same variety will be ready out in the field. If you wait too late to cover it, they're going to bloom almost the same time as in the field, and you've wasted your time and effort to try and get them ready early. So around this part of the country, mid-February, first week of February is about the time. Much later than mid-February, you've gone too late. You can still do it, but you don't want to do it that late. And the tunnel has to be open all winter so the bulbs still get the cooling. Yes?
I'm not understanding. What are you covering?
Oh,
Is your tunnel not covered?
No, it's the whole big high tunnel.
Yeah.
You plant your tulips in there, leave it open until early February, then you close it. So they're getting cold all winter, close it up the first or second week of February, get it warm, and then start to go early. What you can do is when you first close it, leave it closed day and night so it gets really warm in there, warms up the soil quick and gets them going. As soon as they're sprouted a ½ inch or so, then you have to make sure you vent it during the day. You don't want to cook the young growth coming up. But as long as it's still in the ground, leave it shut, let it be 100 degrees in there on a sunny day in February. Go in there, lay down, and enjoy it.
Dave, could you also do this, you throw a caterpillar tunnel over that bed?
You could also do a caterpillar tunnel. I one time had them in the field and just put a small, it was like a 2-row tunnel over them, yes. But you want it plastic, not row cover, real plastic. You could do that. Make sure it's tall enough though, because I also did one time when they started hitting the top of it. And also when you harvest tulips, you're not cutting them, you're pulling them. You reach down, right the soil out and pull it, you get an extra 4 or 5 inches of stem from underground. So all of a sudden this tulip you thought was only 15 inches, now it's 22 inches. The 22-inch tulips are worth $1.50, the 18 one's only worth $1. So that extra stem makes it worth more, so you can sell it for more. Even if the florist can cut it down to 4 inches, you sell them the big stem, they'll pay more for it. So that's about it for tulips. There is a web address that's really long to type in, but it is a tulip fact sheet that did 7 or 8 years ago at the University of Maryland that explains all about growing tulips. And so if you look up just a long address to type in. Yes?
Do you ever think about succession planting of the bulbs? So if you want a certain number every week, you have to do that?
No, she's asking about succession planting for tulips, so you have a certain number every week. Tulips are early, mid, and late season. Some will bloom, think the first day of spring is March 1st. Some will bloom in 6 weeks, some in 8 weeks, some in 10 weeks.
So plant them all at one time.
Plant them all at once, but you get ones that are early, mid, and late season. So that's it for tulips. Any other tulip questions? Yes?
Yeah, how do you decide what colors you want to grow? I mean, based on the season, you know.
Well, basically your tulips you can sell them in late winter and early spring, so that's the spring season, but you can still sell yellow and orange tulips. They will still sell. The other thing I didn't point out is the variety of tulips. I have what I call a Safeway tulip, the ones they sell cheap for $4.99 at Safeway. Don't grow those. The single small purples and yellows and whites and red. Grow the doubles, grow the parrots, grow the ones with the fringe tops, grow the ones that are different, because you can get more money for it and they're going to sell better. Because if somebody comes to your market and they just walk past Safeway, they have tulips for $6.99, they're not going to pay you $15 a bunch for the same look. The tulips look the same. There's a huge tulip grower down an hour south here in Culpeper that grows hydroponic tulips by the hundreds of thousands every week. And they're at Safeway and Whole Foods. You don't want to try and compete with that, and that's all they grow are this plain purple, yellow, and white. You don't want to do those.
So when you harvest a tulip, do you keep the bulb for?
No, tulips are a one-time thing. She's asking you when you harvest, you save the bulb. You don't save the bulb for several reasons. With tulips, the bulb you plant is the mother bulb. If you ever dig up a tulip in June, it's split into 2 or 3 little bulbs. They're not going to do anything for the next 2 years. So don't This part of the world, the ground is not right, the weather's not right, they don't reproduce and get to be a nice big bulb again. So don't bother saving a tulip. If you were to grow a whole field of tulips, not pick a single one, the next year you'll have maybe 10% of them will bloom. This part of the world, tulips don't reproduce and come back good. Especially if you're taking the greens off. It doesn't regenerate energy back into the bulb. Tulips are a one-time bulb. All the other bulbs you can grow again, but tulips are a one-time thing. So that's it for tulips. We'll go on to ranunculus. Oh,
Does anybody ever fool around with species tulips?
not as a cut flower. The species tulips are the ones that are little teeny cute things, but it's not a good cut flower.
No?
No. I mean, unless you're doing it for yourself. I wouldn't grow those to expect to sell them to somebody.
Okay.
Yes.
Weed management, do you put a little, could
Weed-
you put a compost layer on top?
She's
of
asking
that?
weed management. When you're growing your tulips, if you're doing the trench method, you got all nice new fresh soil. It does help to put either a grass mulch, shredded leaves, something that's really light and fluffy that the tulips can push through. It does two things. It'll keep the weeds down some, and also keeps the dirt from splashing up on them. Because nothing worse than have tulips 6 inches tall in a rainstorm, they get all muddy.
Yeah, and you can get extra stem too, if you use straw or something like that.
It grows through the height of the straw,
Yeah,
right?
so you've got a little, whatever thickness you have, that's an extra length of stem that you
And
can.
Yes.
just put that down right when you.
Put it down right when you plant, yes.
Thank you.
And when you plant, you water really good, and then if it's a tunnel, you have to water again over the winter once or twice, and definitely water them in the spring when they're growing.
What kind of fertilizer or anything?
Have people say before the tulips don't need it, because they basically have enough energy in that bulb for that flower that's going to come up then. There's usually enough nutrients in your soil, you don't have to fertilize tulips. Other bulbs, yes, but tulips, I never did. The next two are ranunculus and anemones. They're basically the same growth needs. They like a cool greenhouse in the winter, trying to get them to bloom in the winter, or you can do a cold tunnel and let them sit in the tunnel all winter and bloom in the spring. If you want to do the greenhouse can get down in the 40s at night, but if you have 50 to 55 at night, they can go quicker. And but it depends what else you have in the house. If you have lilies in the house, it needs to be 55, so they grow the ranunculus at 55. If you have nothing else in there, keep it lower at 40, and it'll just cost you less to heat it, but take a few weeks longer to get the flowers. But both of them, when you get the roots, they're all dried and shriveled up. You soak them. Some people say for 24 hours. I say 2 hours at the most with the water running through the bucket. And that's giving fresh water, so it's not stagnant water, and you got some oxygen in the water. So, but 2 hours is all you need. It's just, especially the anemones, you're just getting wet. They're not as dehydrated and shriveled up. The ranunculus looks like a dead root. You think, how's it ever going to grow? But if you soak it for 2 hours, you see it puff up, almost like you see a piece of rice and it's cooked, and it looks so different. As soon as it puffed up, it's all the wetter you need to get it. Don't soak it for a whole other day. That's, to me, is just asking for root rot problems. You can put root shield in this water when you do it, which can help with root problems, root diseases. But you just, two ways you do it. You can either pre-soak them like that and then plant them directly in your beds, but you can have some empty spots, but not everyone grows. Just like seeds, not everyone's going to sprout. These don't germinate to sprout, but not everyone is going to grow. Or you can take them and plant them in 50-cell trays, which is the tray that if you've ever bought rooted perennials in, there's 50 cells. Plant one in each, water them once, and don't water them again until they're growing. The worst thing with both of these is too much water early on when they don't really need water. All you've done is you've gotten them wet and you've woken them up so they want to grow. Don't give them any water until they're actually growing and have roots and leaves, so use that water. Too much water, you're just going to cause them to rot away. They both plant one per square in the netting, although they don't need the netting for support. I always use it as a guide of where to plant. Highly recommend planting it on plastic. I always use the white plastic, it's black on one side, white on the other, because they don't like it hot in the spring, so I figured the white plastic would keep the soil cooler longer in the spring. One per square, put them in, water them really good, and then only keep them on the dry side, don't overwater them.
Did you sprout yours in the cooler or in the greenhouse?
I sprouted them in the greenhouse. Once they were soaked, I sprouted them in the greenhouse, but a cool part of the greenhouse. There are some people that mix them with vermiculite and put them in the cooler to sprout them. I sprouted them in the greenhouse in the trays. I just soaked them and then put them in the trays and grew them.
So you skipped the whole cooler.
I skipped the cooler part, but I put them in a cold part of the greenhouse, on the floor, down where it was in the shade, where it was cool.
So what would you say the temperature was?
It was probably got down to 40s at night. But also, I was doing mine in late September, early October. It might only be in the 50s at night. But it's definitely not a hot greenhouse. It's 80 degrees during the day. Definitely cool.
What about field growing? We don't have a greenhouse.
Field growing, it's tough because if you have to wait till spring to plant them, and then what happens, they come up and then in summer it's too hot and they go dormant and they don't bloom for you. These are one of the plants that's really tough to grow in the field, at least around here. If you're up in Vermont, maybe. But around here, at zone 7, because spring is, it's cold, it snowed, and you got 3 weeks of spring and then it's summer. and it gets too hot too quick, and then they go dormant and they don't work.
Dave, talk about the timing. When do you plant?
Yeah, the timing, two things. You can grow them in a greenhouse and you get them now and start them now and have flowers by Christmas and throughout the winter. Or you can get them now and plant them in a tunnel now, water them, get them growing. What they're going to do is grow just a few leaves, but then if you have them in the tunnel, you put remed right on top of them. Don't have to be a hoop, you're laying right on top of them. So you grow lots of roots all winter because that ground is not frozen. So you got to make sure you water them maybe once or twice throughout the winter. And then in late February, early March, they start to grow. Take the row cover off. Venture tunnel is needed. Don't let it get too hot during the day. Don't let it get cold at night. And you have ranunculus flowers and anemones in late March, early April. By doing in the tunnel with no heat. In zone 7. Zone 6 you can do it with maybe 2 layers of remed. Farther south you could grow them, if you're zone 8, you could go in a tunnel in the winter time and have them be blooming in the winter. But they can't freeze. Once you have the flowers come up, if it freezes, the flower buds are going to die. The plant won't die, it'll put up more flowers, but the flower that's there will die if it freezes. You got to follow up.
Yeah, just to follow up, we are in zone 5, 6.
Right.
And we start that process around December. And after the 3 weeks of cool, then plant in a hoop house. No heat, nothing, usually covered with a small tunnel, and then we're getting flowers sometime April into May.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's a little colder zone than we are here, so he's planting them in the tunnel in the spring, but you still do really early in the spring. You can't wait to put them in the tunnel in April because then it's June and they're dead.
Right.
So you still have to get early. But yeah, there's somebody else that's up north who says that, where they're planting them in the tunnel in late winter, starting in probably late December, early January, getting them in the tunnel into February sometime, late February, and then cover them, protect them, and get flowers in April and early May. Back there.
Can you talk about post-harvest handling and while you're getting them to market or to a floral?
With anemones, well, go real quick to anemones. We're talking about the same. When you pick anemones, there's the flower bud and the little green collar right around the neck. Wait till that's a 1/4 inch down from the flower bud, and then it's ready to pick. Every day it gets a little longer. When it's about a 1/4 inch, that flower is ready. Get it too far up, the flower's not going to open well. Too far down, the flower's going to be too old. Because anemones open and close every day, and it gets to that point where it's perfect, ready to cut. And if you look at that little collar, about a 1/4 inch, that's the right point to pick them. With ranunculus, you're going to pick it when they're not tight. The outer petals have to be open. The outer green, there's a word for it. That's it. The outer calyx is open. And then when the inner flowers are open about halfway, it's ready to pick. You don't want to wait till they're totally open because you've lost a day or two of vase life in the greenhouse. Post-harvest, I know I'm probably getting yelled. I don't think anybody from Chrysler. I didn't use anything but clean water. I had really good water on my farm, and ranunculus would last 2 weeks. Anemones would last over a week. You put them in a cooler, a 38-degree cooler. Definitely in a regular flower cooler, 38 degrees. Clean water. If you use flower food, you want a holding solution, which is basically something that keeps the water clean. You don't want to feed them because that makes them open more. If you're trying to hold them, once they're in the vase in the house, you can use regular flower food if you want to. But even as a fresh ranunculus will last up to 2 weeks. Yes.
Just another question. I'm in zone 7, so we have days where it's still getting 80, 85, and nights sometimes it's dipping as low as 55, maybe 60.
You're talking right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Is it too soon to put them in a tunnel?
I wouldn't put them, if you're going in a tunnel to overwinter, I wouldn't aim to get them actually in the tunnel till mid to late October.
Okay. And they're fine just sitting,
Oh, the ranunculus come as shriveled up, dead-looking clumps of roots. Just let them sit on your kitchen counter with the bag open. Warm and dry is where you store them. Not in a cooler, the roots. You want to store them warm and dry, or even hot and dry. Okay. And the ranunculus are little claws like this. You put them claws down. The anemones are sometimes they're carrot-shaped, sometimes just a lump. It's sometimes tricky to find which end is up. If you can't figure which end is up, just plant it. It'll find its way up. But sometimes you just can't tell which end is the top. The ranunculus will give you usually 5, 6, 7 stems per plant. The anemones sometimes 10 or 12. So keep water them, keep them fed, and they'll keep producing. So that's it for this. Any other questions, ranunculus and anemones? Yes?
Is there any trick to anemone stem? I have such variable stem.
With the anemones, well, usually the anemones come up and the first bloom is going to be short, and maybe the second medium, and then they get to be tall. They're going to have a good root system. So when are you planting them?
In October.
So you plant in the fall and they overwinter and then bloom in spring. They should. You have the right variety. What kind are you getting?
So I got some red, I got them from Brockner, I think it's
The Galilee. Right, then they should be the tall
and
ones.
they're
Yeah.
very tall. But then I got the white with the black black eye, like the panda, those stemlings were all over the place.
Different
They were
variety.
purple.
Try a different variety then. Do you know what name the white ones were?
I thought they were, what is this? Is it the Dowling with the black? Okay.
Yeah, so if you grew it and that whole batch of white was not tall enough, I just wouldn't grow that white one again. But now, even in the same series, you might have the red is tall, the white's medium, the purple's even taller. Within the series, they're not always the same height. Yes?
Shade cloth on the height now.
I wouldn't do shade cloth because you want sunshine in the wintertime. And when they start to grow in the spring.
Okay.
But now, if
After they started growing.
once they start to bloom, around here, shade cloth I usually put on in mid-May. But by then, they're pretty much petered out. The days are getting too long, it's too warm, and they're starting to die out anyway. The other thing with both of those, you can save them. Either you can leave them in the beds and either plant something low water needs over them or leave it empty, or you can pull them up, put them in a crate in a barn like this up in the attic, and do them again in the fall. Hot and dry for the summer, and they can grow them again.
Remade, taking off the remade during the day.
In the wintertime, you don't need to. Just leave it on there all winter. Because the plants stay real short. They don't grow many leaves in the winter. They grow lots of roots because the soil's not frozen. So they keep growing roots in the winter. They're not going to grow much heat till the days get a little bit longer and they know it's warmer. They know when to grow. So until they start getting some height, just leave the remade right on the bed.
Did you succession plant yours?
No, although I did succession some when I was growing them to have them bloom in the winter, like I had them in a heated greenhouse, but for the spring, they're all planted at the same time.
We've had like succession planting ranunculus, but not anemones. But we went to Vattenfeld and they plant in September and harvest like all through the spring. So.
But do they plant one batch, you say, they harvest through the spring? Yeah, I'm not sure. As far as succession planting, if you're trying to harvest, like when I was doing the greenhouse, you can do that because you get them to grow right away. But if you try overwintering in the tunnel, I don't know if they know whether they're planted in October or December. They're still going to bloom in April.
When you successively plant them, when do you plant your first crop?
You can plant them now. You start the
September, the earliest?
the end of September. 'Cause that's when they're available. It's mid-September as they come in. Most of them are grown in Israel, and now is when they're available. Any other anemone or ranunculus questions? Okay. One real quick.
Mine were in crates, and you said I could just store the crates in
Right.
the barn, but how am I going to rehydrate them without overhydrating?
She grew hers in crates, and I told her she could just take the crate and store the whole crate in the barn instead of replant them. Doesn't have to redo them. Just water them really good one time, and that'll be enough, because they will still keep sucking the moisture out of the water. I mean, soaking, muddy wet, one
Okay.
time, and then not again until they grow.
Okay.
One more thing.
So
Pardon?
fertilize?
You can. I use the generic, same fertilizer I used on all my lilies. It was called Easter Lily Special. That's what everybody got because it was the same injector. Whatever you fertilize with should be fine. They're not that picky. Hyacinths. A lot of people don't think of growing hyacinths for cut flowers, but they're great. Very easy to grow. You get non-programmed bulbs. You plant them in crates. About an inch or two of soil on the bottom, soil on the top. Water them really good, and then you put them someplace cold, because you're going to give them their cold period. In this place here, I would just stack them in this room right back here and be fine. Just water them, put them back there, and wait till like about February. And then you bring them out to a little bit warmer place and get them to grow. You could grow them right in here if it's warm enough in February, March. Once they're up, you don't want them to freeze, but then before that, it's okay if they freeze. But the nice thing about having a crate, you then put them someplace to grow them, preferably in a lower light area. You don't want to put them in a bright sunny greenhouse because then they grow really fast and kind of weak and topple over. And sometimes it's the thing, actually, I can't think of the actual technical term, but they grow so fast that the flower bud pops off the bulb, and then you have nothing. So you don't want that. You don't want to grow them really fast when you first bring them out of the cooler, out of your cold room. But you grow them in a place with lower light. If this was a heated room that stayed above freezing night, this would be fine. Then as they get to the height that you want them, when their flowers about that tall and not, you can tell what color they're going to be, but they're not open. This is one of the flowers, like the tulips, I didn't mention it, but it's written down. You want to pick it when you can tell what color it is, don't wait for it to bloom. Same with the hyacinth. As soon as you can tell it's going to be purple or pink or white, it's ready to harvest. Or you can take the whole crate and put it in your 38-degree cooler and hold it in there for a month, 2 months if you need to, and bring them out as you want, and bring them out as you sell them. So it's one of those ones, if you got a farmer's market in the winter, and you wouldn't have hyacinths to sell cut flowers, say, for Valentine's Day, which you can just barely make it for then, but it's going to snow that weekend. And it's going to be a terrible day, and it's not like you've picked all these tulips, now you got to sell them, and you don't sell them because no one came to the market, and you go home and throw them away. The hyacinth, it's going to be a rainy day today, just leave the crate in the cooler. Or you can take the whole crate to the market and sell them right out of the crate. What doesn't sell, you put right back in the cooler.
How many bulbs to a crate?
Did I say only how many? No. It's about 4 by 5, close to 20. Pretty close. Not quite about a finger between them, but 4 by 5, 20 to 25 per crate. But then I think I read on here that you cut them, you slice it off. Make sure you leave the basal plate on the stem. In other words, you don't take a hyacinth and cut it like you would cut a lily or a daffodil. You want to pull the whole thing up and slice the bulb off like you're slicing an apple, leaving the core on it so the basal plate is still attached to the stem of the flower. And that way it takes up water better and lasts longer. Or you can take and hose off, rinse off all the bulb and salt with the bulb. Because a vase, the right vase with 3 bulbs of hyacinths with the bulb still on it, that's all it takes to fill a nice big vase. And then people could plant in the garden. Well, the hyacinths never come back as good as the first year. They grow them the right way in Holland. We can't do it here. In your landscape, you plant this beautiful one year and they keep getting smaller and smaller every year. So you buy new ones every year. But hyacinths are something people don't think about. I know, like Ellen Frost, where'd you go?
She's right here.
She's
Ellen?
not paying attention, but florist, do you like to use hyacinths? You're supposed to say yes. Why not? You don't have good ones?
They're hard because they're so heavy on the top.
Yeah, it is.
Stem that just breaks.
Well, they should have a better stem than that, but okay.
I like them, but they're hard to use in design.
Okay.
Sorry, that was probably not great.
That wasn't the answer you're supposed to give, but there are florists that like them. And the other thing with hyacinths, you can grow them in pots, and if you're at a market in the spring, sell all bulbs. You can sell potted tulips, potted hyacinths, just another way to make money on them. In other words, if you buy a whole crate of hyacinths, you plant 100 in pots and grow 100 as a cut flower in crates, and sell them that way too. If you're already at a farmer's market over the winter, early spring, take as much stuff as you can sell, because it's hard to make a lot of money in the winter because you don't have many crops to sell. So if there's something else you can add to your crop mix, go ahead and add it. Dutch iris is a bulb you plant out in the field, and it comes and blooms in late May and into June. It will come back in future years, sometimes not as big the first year after you cut it. You cut this year and the next year won't be as big, but eventually they'll get bigger again. Yes?
Are they deer resistant?
I'm not, Dutch iris or not, she says no. But Dutch iris is one of the ones you cut as soon as you can tell what color it is. If it looks like it's a little bit of blue, it's ready to pick. Yes?
How cold can they take?
I don't know, your zone who? 3? 3. I'm not quite 3, I think 4 or 5. I'd have to look that one up. But pretty cold. Freesia is like the ranunculus anemones. You have to have a heated greenhouse because it gets too hot in the spring. If you plant a freesia in March, by the time it's ready to bloom, it's already summer and it's not going to work. But it's an amazing flower to grow in your greenhouse in the winter because the smell alone, when you go to sell it, it's going to make people walk by your stand like, what is that? And they come back and they want to know what the smells so good. And the freesia that comes from South America, from Holland, for the wholesaler, no longer has that scent because it's been sitting in a box, sitting in a plane, and it doesn't have the scent like fresh cut stuff. Freesia has to have support because it will tip over at the ground level. I used to use the 6-inch Hortonova, and then I ended up getting basically chicken wire, really small squares, only about 4 inches off the ground, and that held it much better and easier to cut than trying to have the regular netting. Because what would happen in the 6 inches was enough for it to tip, and it would still fall over that 6 inches. Yes? It has to be heated. It cannot freeze. So you can do a low tunnel if you're in like zone 8 maybe, but it can never freeze. If it freezes, they're all died off. So a tunnel around here, no. It has to have heat. But it's a great flower to have. You pick it when the first flower, this little arch stem of flowers, you pick when that first one is open, and then you sell it. Yes? You can plant them in bulb crates, yes. But then you start to deal with some kind of support so they don't fall over. But you can do bulb crates, and you can fit maybe 15 in a crate. Yes?
Can you treat it like a paperwhite and grow it in gravel?
Paperwhite, you say do
Can
the...
you treat it like a paperwhite?
Oh, the freesia, I don't think so. I've never tried that, but I don't think so. But the freesia, like I said, is a really good one to grow, and those can be saved and planted again the following year. Just store them warm and dry till next year. Daffodils. You can grow daffodils by just planting them out in the field. One thing, deer will not eat daffodils, so plant all the daffodils you want. The deer won't touch them. But make sure you have someplace to sell them in mid-March when they're blooming, or whenever it is in your area. And also, you can grow the plain yellow one. You're going to sell some of them. But if you go to the doubles, the ones that have the weird colored trumpets, the ones that have 2 or 3 flowers in the stem, you're going to sell more of those than you do the plain yellow ones. And the price difference isn't that much. And when you're buying daffodils, they come in sizes 12 to 14, 14, 16, 16, 18 centimeter. Buy the bigger one because you get 1 or 2 more flowers. It might cost you 20 cents more or 15 cents more, but you can get another $2 worth of flowers out of it. So that's one where it's worth buying the bigger bulb. You can grow daffodils in crates. Do the same thing like the hyacinth, give them a cold period in your barn or shed somewhere, then bring them in your greenhouse, or even in a tunnel in the spring, like the tulips, to get ready early. Because once everyone has daffodils blooming in their yard, and they walk to the market past all these yards of daffodils, they're less likely to buy yours because they've already seen them. They've already had the daffodil fixed for the spring. But if they come to your stand the 1st of March and it's still barren out in the neighborhood and there's no daffodils anywhere, they want your flowers. They want those daffodils. So if you never have anything ready before it's ready in the field, you have a much better chance of selling it. Yes?
If you do them in crates and you put them in the barn, do you do like the other bulbs, you just water them once and then not water them again that whole winter?
Anytime you're doing anything in the crates where you're trying to give them the cold period in the barn, you water them really good when you plant them, and then that's usually enough for the winter because they're not using any water, and they're in the barn where there's no sun shining, no wind. They shouldn't dry out. But then when you bring them out to grow them, you are going to have to water them the day you bring them out, and then maybe every week once they have sprouts come up.
When would you bring them out in this area?
They need to have at least 12 weeks in the cold. So if you plant them in, get them in there early October, you can bring them out in early January. Yeah, early January. Yes, they need about at least 12 weeks. And the daffodils you can also then save again. Daffodils go dormant. They flower, and 6 weeks later or 7 weeks, the leaves die. All you got to do is make sure after you pick them, keep them water, keep them happy, a little bit of fertilizer. And when they die back, put them in your hot, dry barn, water them in the fall to get them nice and wet, and then store them again until spring. Yes?
If you brought it on in January, you have to heat it nice.
Yeah, if you bring them out in January, you'd have to heat at night. It's too cold. That's for a heat for your greenhouse. If you're trying to bring them in a tunnel, always figure a tunnel about 3 or 4 weeks before outside. So if they normally sprout in your area March 1st, probably February 1st, you put them in your tunnel. And daffodils can freeze a little bit, and they can usually take it, especially the leaves. The flowers and the buds can. And even tulips can take a light frost on them. It doesn't hurt them. One time I had a whole crate of tulips that were a little too far ready, so we put them out of the greenhouse into the shed because it was colder, and Valentine's was the following weekend. And the weatherman said 35 tonight, it got down to 25. We came next morning, they were all, looked translucent, and they were all hanging over. So it's, just lost 500, or it's like 300 tulips. At the end of the day, they're standing up and they were fine. So it's amazing what they can take. Some of the spring bulbs.
So could you move them from a barn-like situation then into an unheated greenhouse?
We're talking about which product? The daffodils?
The daffodils.
Yeah, the daffodils, you can put an unheated house around here, I would say mid-February. Because you still don't want it up and blooming and a hard freeze on it. Frost is okay, but not a hard freeze. But you can only cheat the season without propane heat or sunlight heat about 3 to 4 weeks. So then if it normally blooms outside the 1st of April, you might be able to get the 1st of March in your tunnel. You can't go much farther than that. Yes?
Weed management, I know you said if you're leaving in the field, you can put landscape fabric down.
Yeah, we'll discuss that. I'll explain that. She was asking about weed management. Yes. Okay, I'm getting close. I only got 2 left. I'm good. It's talking weed management. Anything that dies back in the summer, alliums, daffodils, aromaris, weeds are a bitch on anything. I used to use Roundup. A lot of people don't want to use the Roundup for the chemicals. If you go out, once it's dormant, cover the whole area with landscape fabric. Nothing's going to grow there all summer. Take it off in the spring before they come up, and you've got a head start on keeping your weeds out. They're still going to sprout in the spring, but you've killed them off all summer.
And you leave the fabric all winter?
Leave it on all winter. The rain still goes through. The bulbs think it's winter. They're going to get the cold period. Just take off the fabric in the spring before they start to grow.
So are there still greens, like from the daffodils, for example, when you put it down?
No. You never want to cut any bulb that you want to have bloom again. The greens have to die naturally. You don't want to cut them. You don't want to bury them. You don't want to cover them. Let them, once they're brown, then you can do whatever you want to that bed. You can mow it,
Thank you.
rake it, do anything. But they have to die on their own if you want the bulb to produce again. Next one is alliums. A lot of people don't think of. Do you have a daffodil question real quick?
Yeah, how many in a crate?
Depends on the bulb size, but you're going to buy the bigger bulbs, and you fit about 20 in a crate. Alliums. A lot of people don't think of alliums, but the best one is Purple Sensation. It's one of the cheapest that makes a big, round, purple ball of flower. They got like gigantium and the globe master that makes the flowers the size of like this, but you can't afford it. They're $3.50, $4 a bulb, and you're not going to sell it to the florist for $8 or $9. To buy the globe master, which is 42, 45 cents, and you can sell it for $2 at the market, or $2.50 and $1 to the farm, or more for the florist. So that's the best one. Is the is the purple sensation, or there's the variety called drumstick. I'm not going to try to say it. It's Sphaerocephalani, and it's 1,000 words. The whole bag of Scrabble letters in one word they made. It's the drumstick allium, about the size of your thumb, though. It looks kind of like a tall wild onion. So it's a tall, skinny flower. It's more of a filler flower, whereas the purple sensation is a focal flower. The drumstick you might sell maybe for $1 at the farmer's market. The florist might give you $1, but the purple sensation is going to make you the money. So that's something you want to grow. They don't like it really wet, so make sure you plant it someplace that has good drainage in the summer, because they're like the daffodils and so forth. They go dormant 6 weeks after they bloom. So they bloom in June. By July, they're gone. So you can cover them with fabric to keep out the weeds, mulch it heavily to keep out the weeds, but then they come back the next year. The alliums do come back every year for you. The other thing with the alliums is you've got the flower. If you don't sell them all then, leave them, and they make really cool looking seed pods. Every little thing becomes a little green seed pod on the end of each little, whatever that's called. What is that thing on each one of those? You're supposed to know.
Seed pod.
Well, you know what I mean? Right, the little seed pod holder. Any other questions on alliums? That's a very undergrown, you don't grow enough alliums. Yes.
If you're planting in the field and you want to keep them, what's the spacing on that?
If you're planting in the field and want to keep them, what's the spacing? About 4 or 5 inches between them. The bulbs come in, they're only the size of your thumb, so not too far apart. And the last one I have on the list we're going to talk about today is Ornithogalum, also called Star of Bethlehem. It's a little teeny bulb about the size of the end of my pinky. You have to have a heated greenhouse for it. You can start them anytime from now until about December. They bloom about 12 or 14 weeks later. The vase life is 2, 3, sometimes 4 weeks. So you sell one of those to a farmer's market customer. They keep coming back every week and saying they're still good. They're still good. They still last. I used to sell them for $3 or $4 a stem at the farmer's market. The florist, when I would sell them to Ellen, I charged her $1.50, but usually she didn't get them because I didn't have enough of them. But Mima, you grow them this year, right?
Yeah, I had one florist, she ordered the whole crop. I mean, she was visiting our greenhouse for something else, saw it, and said, I want every single one.
And what do you sell them for per stem?
I think they were $2.
Yeah.
To the florist.
To the florist. So it's a high dollar, but it is in your greenhouse in the wintertime where you're paying to heat that greenhouse. The greenhouse can be as cold as 40, but they're going to grow really slow. If it's 50 to 55, they're going to grow faster. They can be saved. You grow them in crates, or you can do them in ground beds, but you can save the bulbs. If it's in crates, you take that whole crate. When it goes dormant, they're going to bloom, and 5 or 6 weeks later, the leaves die back. Then you take the whole crate, stick it in the corner here in the barn where it's hot and dry. Then in the fall, you water it and start this process over. But I found with those, when you want to regrow them, you water them in like mid to late September, early October. I would then put it in the cooler for 3 or 4 weeks, and then bring it and put it in the greenhouse. And that seemed to kind of give it that rainy season, rainy, cold winter season for it, and then it came back to spring.
Wait, are you saying now it's time to start?
If you want to start them again, you could do them now, if you're old ones. Water them in the next few weeks, put them in the cooler for a few weeks, and then put them in the greenhouse. Yes?
What species are you growing?
That's just Rhizoides. Is the one.
Have you ever tried Magnum?
No.
Much longer.
Much taller. Now there is one that has a much bigger bulb that's more of a tropical, almost like an amaryllis bulb. But we don't sell that. I've never grown it. There's something out in...
John is here.
No, he's there. He grows the big one. But it's a summer plant, a summer crop. Sondersii. But these are great. We sell them at Eddie. I brought some if everyone wants to buy any. They're 55 cents each, and I got little bags of 100 if anybody wants any. But you have to have a heated greenhouse for them. But it is a great crop to grow if you have a greenhouse in the wintertime, because you can plant 50 of those would take 15, about 5 crates, 4 to 5 crates. So it's not much room, but you're going to make $200 or $300 off that little space right there. Yes?
Last year I bought them from you and started them in a flat in my house, because I don't have a greenhouse.
Right, okay.
And put them out and did fine.
They did fine. So you plant them in the plug trays in the house at what time? Late winter?
Yeah.
And then you put them actually in the field and they work for you that way. Now, have you dug them up to save them? Because they won't overwinter around here. It says they're zone 7, but I would never trust it.
Okay, no, I haven't looked at them yet.
Yeah, because they've gone dormant. If you want to save them, I would dig them up and save them.
Okay.
Because you plant the thing the size of my pinky, this year it's the size of my thumb. It does get bigger every year. So any other questions on any of the bulbs? Yes? That's the one thing, there are little things you think you put 40 or 50, you put like 15, 12 to 15. Because the leaves get kind of big. And if you put too many, they won't bloom as well and they'll be smaller. It's only about 12 to 15 per crate. They do get one main flower that's really big and then usually a smaller second shoot. That's still, you've already talked to, people are used to buying it for $2 for the big one, they still pay $2 for the small one. I always had the same thing with Lysianthus. You sell it for $1.57 in July, these big huge things. In October, when you have the side shoot, they still pay $1.50 just because they want it so bad. And to them, it's Lysianthus, it's worth $1.50. So the same with this, the same price even though it's smaller later on. Yes?
What percentage do you plan on losing on second generation bulbs?
Of the ornithalum?
Well, on anything.
On anything.
10% loss or 20% loss or?
Shouldn't lose anything. I mean, your tulips you never have back, but your daffodils should always come back, your iris should come back, your hyacinths you don't do again, your allium should come back. It should be pretty good. Now some things, if it's too wet in the summertime, in other words, you've got alliums planted there and you think, oh, I'll plant sunflowers over that or ageratum, and you're going to water it all the time, you're going to kill the bulbs because they're going to rot. So most bulbs, you can't overplant something else unless it's something that's really drought tolerant.
But in your crates, you can plan on a pretty much.
If you're having a crate, pretty much everything, yeah. Like if she were to go home and check her crates of ornithalum, she's probably got all the 12 bulbs are still there. Yes?
What about organic control for lily beetles?
Organic control for lily beetles? Your fingers. I don't know. I've never had to deal with lily beetles, luckily. No. Neem? But you actually have to get it on them, or that stops them from eating.
And varieties that are widely, the taste of them seems to be very different.
Do they overwinter?
Yellow wing is awful. They ate every one of them, but one right next to it didn't have a single beetle at all.
Well, most beetles also have their favorite colors. So they might like the yellow better. Just like when your dahlias, the cucumber beetles are on the yellow ones. They don't touch the dark red ones. So, yeah, they're the white beetles. Okay. They read the plant pattern. Any other questions? Yes?
You don't have it listed, but talking about forcing paper whites.
Oh, yeah, I didn't put paper whites in, yeah. Paper whites can be done as both a potted plant or as a cut flower. I know Ellen Frost used tons of them in the winter because there's not many other flowers to choose from. Paper whites, almost all of them are grown in Israel. They come over, they're available now. You grow them in a cool greenhouse. You want it to be bright. If it's not bright, they get really tall and floppy. But you can grow them as a potted plant or as a cut flower. Cut flower, you can do them in a crate, just like you do in the daffodils. 20 or 30 in a crate, let them grow and cut them. You want to pick them just before they open. And they're also one of these ones that are great to put the whole crate in the cooler or the whole pot and just hold it in the cooler for 3 weeks because you don't need them yet. They're ready or almost ready. Put the whole thing in the cooler and just let it sit there. And it'll hold for 2 or 3 weeks, bring it out and then cut it and use it. She's telling me I'm done? Okay, Barbara said I'm done. My email's on there if anyone has any questions, always email me. And also I put some price lists out there for the dahlias and lilies if you got that.